Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Nëïgsëndöïg Cöcülës show. My name is Nëïgsëndöïg Cöcülës, the namesake for this here podcast. Arch has had an attack recently, within the last few months or so. Now, the name of this attack is something called Atomic Arch. This time, the target was the Arch User Repository, or the AUR. The cause of this attack was social engineering compromising two packages, an NPM package called Atomic Lock File and a bun package called JS Digest. The use of this attack was very interesting, for the tool specifically, because it was in Rust. This also targeted systemd, though there is a good chance Artix users could have potentially been affected by it. Now, I also surmise that AI may have been used in this attack, just to tick off the anti-AI crowd. Now, the type of attack this was simply a supply chain attack. This happened between June 9th and June 11th of 2026, and this attack compromised over 1,900 packages, which is about 1 to 2% of the Arch user repository. The potential motives for this particular attack could have been a state-sponsored attack on Arch because of its lightweight nature and customizability on almost anything. I have a theory too, in where a Linux rival who has the know-how on Arch decided to take upon themselves, or as I opined, at the hands of a state sponsor, to socially engineer the developers of said packages, who impersonated them and then compromised them. A third theory I have is that it was just being done to enforce digital ID, which recent episodes started calling out since episode 35, main episode 35. Instead, the motive was actually abusing the trust system, taking over inactive packages, and compromising them with these two specific packages. Now, let's talk about what this is. This is a Rust-based binary, which was designed to harvest developers' secrets. And specifically, systemd was targeted and has a recurrence for this attack, making a servant that's basically saying restart equals always. OpenRC, deinit, runit, or S6, or anything else may have had this attack happen only once if someone wasn't careful. This attack uses a rootkit, hiding itself through some complicated stuff that I can't even get into. That's because the trust model for the AUR was targeted, hence why I talked about the social engineering. Only a simple change in build instructions or the PKG build that was done on a mass scale. Now, as I said, specifically abandoned packages were targeted for this attack. Atomic Lock File, which is the NPM package, was used in the first wave of this attack. The second wave of packages being compromised utilized the bun package JS-Digest. There were malicious commits being reset, and the accounts behind the hack were being banned. The suspect packages were still being recorded. I can say, however, that the AUR had disabled user sign-ins and some other stuff in the background while they cleaned up this mess of over 2,000 packages with bad commits. Now, what was being targeted in this case? We were looking at cookies, tokens, local storage from Chromium-based browsers specifically. However, Firefox was unaffected, despite Firefox AUR packages being compromised. Electron app session data was also stolen, so I'm talking Discord, Slack, Teams. GitHub, NPM, and HashiCorp Vault tokens were also taken, including OpenAI bearer material and account metadata. AI users were clearly being targeted. However, I get why someone was using ChatGPT, as its dataset was basically just a lot of piracy, and someone was removed from this planet by Sam Altman for calling this out. This was, in fact, a deletion. Okay? Now, I'm on YouTube, so of course I have to say things differently on YouTube because its algorithm would have an aneurysm if I said what this actually was. Regardless, SSH keys, known_hosts, and shell histories were somehow also being targeted. And this included Docker, Podman credentials, and VPN profiles. Disgusting. Now, all of this goes to temp.sh, and it is command and controlled through a Tor onion service via a local loopback proxy in the background. However, I was also told there was a chance that if you didn't have Tor installed, what it would be doing instead was using some ClearNet shenanigans that would obviously be spied on very quickly. A systemd service was installed with restart equals always. The root ended up copying itself under /var/lib, and it wrote a unit under /etc/systemd/system. This, systemd users, is how this attack comes back. By no means is this a privilege escalation attack. It is instead an info stealer. Now, if you do activate a specific module, an eBPF module, it will also activate hidden_PID, hidden_name, and hidden_inode. Debugging will not work here. It was also said this particular attack had ties to the Monero wallet GUI as a potential unanalyzed crypto miner. Apparently, there was a crypto miner that was also added to this attack, and computers running Arch that were affected likely became crypto miners. Now, if you do need to clean this stuff up, just basically nuke your current Arch install. You have to reinstall Arch from scratch. If you did not update before this attack, you're perfectly fine. Now, I don't update the AUR very often, and I didn't do that for about a couple of weeks. If this attack is still ongoing by the time this episode airs, you shouldn't update the AUR either. Most AUR packages are still safe. 1 to 2% of them were whacked. Now, nitrogen was a suspected package that I never updated, but I deleted that and learned fe instead at the time of recording. I'm already loving the random wallpaper feature with fe, and I'm using waypaper if I wanted to change the wallpaper to something specific. And thankfully, if you're an Xlibra user, you can use waypaper. Yeah, it's called waypaper. Now, all of the AUR packages I have installed are confirmed to not be affected if I were to do an AUR update. And I actually did a recent update and confirmed that none of this stuff was being targeted. It's mainly fonts that are not attacked, and I think a couple other things. Let me check the AUR right now as we speak. The stuff that I have installed in the AUR. So AUR, stuff that is installed. Let me actually find the AUR repository. So I've got all of this stuff. So App Image Launcher, rgag. I think it is rgag, which is an option and argument parser for C++. Caribou, which is a UI navigation application. Clutter, which is a UI toolkit. CogL, which has to do with GL and GLES, basically OpenGL stuff. Decklink, this is for... Oh, right, I needed to get this for one of the packages I have, which is Acetone ISO. We've got EB Garamond. That's a font I have. Electron version 3.1, I think it's version 3.1, 31.7.7.4, so that is incorrect. I have Helm. Thankfully, that wasn't compromised. Jack Capture wasn't compromised. Leave 32 SDL2 underscore image. Map tool, I have that installed. This one, a TLS library known as Embed TLS2. Nemo Seahorse, which is an encryption and signing extension for Nemo. That's Cinnamon, by the way. I have Cinnamon installed, but I still use i3. OBS iOS camera source and OBS Pipewire audio capture are not affected either. PicoCrypt is not affected by this. Potter is not affected by this. Python 3.10 to Python 3.13 are also unaffected. Quick Wall. You can basically set wallpapers directly from Unsplash. I actually need to delete that. Serious Sam. To basically do Serious Sam Classic shenanigans, which conflicts with Serious Sam VK, which is the Vulkan version of basically a source port of Serious Sam. I've got Garamanito. I've got Sortsmill Goaty, which is basically a revival of Goaty Old Style and Italic. Upscale, spelled up, and then scale spelled with a Y. This basically allows you to upscale using AI. And then I have the Wine 10, Yabridge, CTL stuff, but I'm already going ahead and setting some things with a Wine prefix that I use with Wine 9.21. So that's exactly what I did. Now, this was a shorter episode, sure. However, this needed to be covered regardless. But I am about to end it here. Every episode releases every Wednesday, if there aren't any scheduling conflicts, at 4 p.m. Pacific Time. You can listen to this podcast on Wavelake, YouTube, or any other Podcast 2.0 player, such as Podverse, Fountain, and Tenapod, and many, many more. If you're on the YouTube site and want to listen to this podcast on the go, just copy the RSS feed located in the YouTube description. Paste that into a player that doesn't support the 2.0 standard. That said, I am out of time for today's episode. Thank you, and good night.